they expect that whatever they put in, they're going to get more out of it than that. And I don't like treating relationships or approaching relationships that way. I think it's a really toxic way to do things. Hey YouTube, Alex here, and in today's video I wanted to talk about this subject, don't be afraid to leave people behind. And when I mentioned that, hey YouTube, Alex here, and in today's video I want to talk about this subject, don't be afraid to leave people behind. And what do I mean by this? Well, a lot of what I talk about is related to living in other countries, moving abroad, and I think that it's important for people to consider a fresh start. And part of what I think goes into having a fresh start when you move to another country is leaving people behind. Leaving behind bad relationships, toxic people, frenemies, people that just aren't looking out for your best interest, people that are emotional vampires. They take your energy. And so yeah, let me go ahead and get into today's topic. So similar to somebody drowning, you don't want to be dragged down with them by trying to save them. And I found that a lot of the people that I've had to cut out of my life, they're essentially drowning from the consequences of their bad decisions. And these decisions are all kinds of bad decisions. A lot of people, they might initially be thinking about financial, but also health decisions, different kinds of choices of how people spend their time. And I found that a lot of people, they want you to kind of join them in their misery, and they actively want you to participate in this misery and to help them act out this anger or aggression or codependent patterns, and a lot of just really unhealthy coping mechanisms that people have, that they're in this situation because most other people can have stepped away from them. A lot of people, when they're adults and they see other adults acting this way, if the adults are healthy and responsible, they'll see these other adults acting in these childish ways and they'll back away. They'll cut them out slowly over time. They'll have excuses when that other person tries to make plans. And you should feel the same way, presuming you're not financially dependent upon this toxic person, and that's a different discussion. Then you should be willing to walk away and kind of explain, like, look, you are dealing with problems of your own creation, and only you can really solve them. And I have to worry about myself and my own well-being, and I don't want to get wrapped up in this nonsense. I don't want to get wrapped up in playing these different kinds of games and going back and forth as though these toxic people have input into your life decisions, because I've had people try to get in fights with me over my travel plans. And it's like, look, if you have this attitude toward my decisions, then I can just cut you out of my life. I'm not going to change my travel plans. I'm not going to acquiesce to your demands. I'm an adult and I'm quite capable of making my own money and supporting myself. So yeah, just let him go. And it's tough. I'm not going to say it's not difficult. Definitely some of these people you're probably really close to, some of these people you've known for a long time, but they can't go with you, and you don't need to stay to try to appease them, because they're going to be miserable with or without you. That's something that you've got to realize, is that some of us have a savior complex. We have this mentality that we need to help other people, or we need to save other people, and you have to let that go. A lot of these people, in my experience anyway, they're toward the end of their lives and they're really upset because they're not happy with the decisions they made, and they don't believe that other people can make different decisions and have different outcomes. They typically have a closed mind, a small mindset, and aren't really looking at the bigger picture. They're just worried about their immediate needs and how they can offload as much emotional baggage as quickly as possible. And talking about leaving people behind, for some reason, therapy, at least in many countries, I know in the United States, it's this way among a lot of older people, is that there's a stigma with it. There's this stigma with seeking therapy. I myself have seen a number of therapists. I found some of them to be quite effective. But there's this idea that I can just, treat other people as proxy therapists, as what's the word, surrogate therapists, and it's like, no, that's not appropriate. For me, I'm part Japanese. I really identify strongly with Japanese culture because I was raised by my grandmother who's from Japan, And so it felt very much like a Japanese household. And this kind of mentality or way of doing things is antithetical to the Japanese way. This idea that your personal problems, many of which you've created yourself, are somehow appropriate to put on other people and to make other people deal with it. That's what therapists are for. That's what mental health counselors are for. That's what mental health professionals are for. That's what psychiatrists are for. That's not for lay people to deal with. And I've tried to have this discussion with people where they don't understand. It's like, well, why can't you help? It's like, I'm not qualified to help. Do I look like a mental health professional? I did have a minor in psychology and I study psychology, but me studying psychology as a layperson and reading here and there is not the same as somebody who is trained full time for years in the field of counseling and in the field of mental health services. That understands the bigger picture and understands different kinds of illnesses and stressors and factors in your life that can cause a person to be unhappy. And beyond that, if medical intervention is necessary, I'm definitely not allowed to prescribe medication. I'm not a medical doctor. And so when people try to treat me as though, oh, you're capable of solving my problems because we're friends, no, okay, no, I'm definitely there for my friends. I definitely am willing to hear people out. I have friends that have real serious problems in their lives, and I'm willing to be there for them. But to me, I had a bad day. Well, every day is bad for a lot of these people. A lot of these people that have set their lives up in a really bad way, every day is bad because they've eliminated choice from their lives. They've made decisions such that they can't choose to have a good day. And so I would encourage those people to see a counselor, to seek counseling services. But a lot of them, they want it for free. They don't want to pay the cost of admitting, hey, I'm struggling, so I'm going to go see a counselor. They don't want to pay the copay. They don't want to make the time to speak with a professional. They don't want to perhaps have to skip a few counselors that maybe they didn't care for. They just want to use the people in their personal life for this. And I've noticed a lot of these toxic people that you want to leave behind. I mentioned it before. They run off a lot of people. They're onto you because you're the next person in line that hasn't dipped out from just being tired of their victim mindset. And I think it's really important to stay away from people with the victim mindset because that mindset is frankly, what's the word? Contagious. It gets to be where you start to think the same way. I've had that issue myself and dealing with my grandmother who has definitely has narcissistic personality disorder. And, it just isn't productive or healthy or helpful for you to move beyond old patterns and behavior habits because they're going to try to pull you into that dynamic. They're going to try to instigate that pattern, and they might be nice for a week. I've gone no contact with people for years at a time, reconnected, and within a week they're already back to what they were doing before. And it's like, look, you run out of chances. A lot of these people, you need to consider the chances that you've given them and the fact that they still don't want to change. They still don't want to seek counseling. They still don't want to seek professional help for their issues. And ultimately, because of that, they need to be on their own. They need to be on their own because they don't need to make the world worse by making you unhappy, by bringing unhappiness to your life, unhappiness that could affect your job, it could affect your family, it could affect your children. And it's just really not necessary. Some people are just dead weight in your life, and you could probably think of people perhaps in your past, if not today, that are dead weight, but they don't carry their own weight. They want to lean on you all the time, even though there's nothing wrong with them that they can't address in some way and some level. It's just a choice. It's a matter of choice, and you need to understand that in life is short, and we need to really place value on who we spend our time with. And I feel like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So if 2 of your friends or 3 of your friends out of 5 are not going anywhere in life, they have a negative mindset, they're unhappy because they don't like the results or the consequences of their actions, then they need to be let go because they're going to continue to be stagnant. I mean, you talk about sometimes in careers where, there's a guy or gal at your work that they have 20 years experience, but it's been the same year on repeat for 20 years. They haven't learned any new skills. They haven't modified or adjusted their game plan, their way of doing things to a more effective pattern. And They probably are not making near as much money as they could be. They probably don't have near the amount of personal success that they could have because they're not willing to change. And so you do have to be willing to change. And so if you have people in your life that are not dynamic, that are not looking to better themselves in some way, then they really need to go. The next thing I'm going to mention, you may have some people that they've been generous to, maybe older relatives, they've helped you out in some way. And I'm not going to discount that. If somebody's genuinely helped you out a lot, then that's wonderful. But I found a ton of people, they want a return on investment. And this is particularly true in the United States where everybody's very, very money oriented. I found people, oh yeah, I'm going to help you out and this and that. And then they want something else. I mean, it's like, an example of this is, oh yeah, you can live with me for free. And then a week or two into it, they're asking you for bedroom fund favors. Another thing, you can crash on my couch, but they expect you to be their housemaid or their house servant. And so you have to be wary of that. Be careful that there are people out there that they will pretend to be generous or helpful or kind or trying to look out for your best interests, and they're really just trying to get a return on their investment. They expect that whatever they put in, they're going to get more out of it than that. And I don't like treating relationships or approaching relationships that way. I think it's a really toxic way to do things. Doing somebody a favor to get more than you put in isn't really doing them a favor. It's not being generous, and it's really disingenuine and something that you need to be careful about, because I think that when you talk about your plans to move abroad, some people that are these toxic people, they want that ROI on you. They're going to throw up a bunch of roadblocks. They might try good cop, bad cop. They might initially try offering you something, or, oh, if you leave, I'm not going to give you this, or, oh, I'm not going to give you that, or, but if you stay, maybe you get the house when I'm gone, things like that. And you got to realize none of this stuff is set in stone. Things like estates, wills, they can be changed all the way up until somebody passes on. So somebody could rob you of most of your free time for years and you get nothing for it. And I know this sounds ironic, reversing ROI, but as far as them to you, you to them, that type of dynamic. But I flip it back on them. If I have somebody that's trying to use me, trying to pretend to be nice to me, to get more out of me than they put in, I flip it back on them and I explain, look, I've got an employer. I don't right now, but eventually I'll have an employer, and they don't play games. I know some people will say corporate plays games, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get paid. I'm still going to get paid. I can guarantee that I'm going to get my salary, presuming I maintain employment and I work hard. But with these people that are trying to get something out of you more than what they put in, there's no quantifiable way to measure that. There's not going to be a contract where they say, okay, if you listen to my problems for the next year, you're going to get this or you're going to get that. There's no rules or laws that hold these people accountable for treating you this way, for trying to use you. And so definitely be careful about users and leave them behind. Some of these people, I tell them, look, I'm gone for 6 months at least. I'm gone for a year. That's great that you want to do this or that, but I have my plan set in stone. And of course, then they might get into threatening you, and you have to explain, look, your threats are hollow. If you threaten me, I can, pursue legal action. And I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice, but it's, you have options. You have options. If people are trying to maintain something while you live on the other side of the planet, they want to call you up and start going on and on about their problems and this and that. Well, that's the last time you might want to talk to them. You may want to just move on from them. I don't care what it is. People use all kinds of subjects as vehicles for their own displeasure. I know politics is a common one where somebody will call you up and start complaining about politics. Well, they're not really frustrated about politics. More often, they're frustrated about their own lives, their own decisions, their own consequences. And politics is somehow an appropriate vehicle to still complain and be negative, but circumvent having to address their own responsibility and the way that their life has turned out. And kind of topping this off, your life may be atomized beyond community anyway. A lot of these people that I want to leave behind, when I really address the totality of the circumstances, really think things through, I realize we're not really a community. We have nothing in common. I had that conversation with my stepdad where before I went no contact with him, I pointed out, look, we don't have much in common. My mom passed away 20 years ago, and he starts bringing up, oh, the past and this and that. And I point out to him, look, the past isn't paying my bills. The past is not going to pay my rent. If you get physically violent with me and hurt me where I can't do my job, you're not going to start paying my rent. You're not going to start buying food. You're not going to from on my table. You're not going to be there for me. So that's something to consider. That's something to really strongly consider, is that more and more over time, individuals have more and more personal responsibility because of the lack of community throughout the world. And so if you have these people that they try, oh yeah, we're friends, we're buddies, we're family, this and that, and they've got to insist on this over and over again, you've got to really consider their motives and what they're getting out of the relationship and what you're getting out of the relationship, because more often than not, you may find that you're putting a lot more in than you're getting out, and that's really a one-sided relationship. And I recommend people to not have one-sided relationships. The final thing I'm going to say here is that you want to save yourself. Getting away from these people is in your best interest. It doesn't matter what's in their best interests, because they're not going to act in what is really in their long-term best interest. They'll act in their short-term best interest, but a lot of people, they don't think beyond today. They don't think beyond a week. Whether they're rich, poor, or whatever race or gender they are, they're not really thinking about how their poor decisions will hurt you in the long term. I can't count the number of times I've regret listening to terrible advice from my stepdad or my grandmother that is just backwards and gets the opposite results of what I want. And so getting away from these people, I start to think for myself more, and I really make better decisions that are better for my well-being, better for my health, better for my long-term future, because fundamentally, most people, nobody really knows what it's like to walk in your shoes. Nobody knows what it's like to live your life, and only you know that. And so anyway, I hope this video has been helpful. I kind of wanted to talk about some of the reasons why you need to leave some people behind when you do move to another country. Even if you're just going to move for a year, tell them you're moving for 5 years, 10 years. After a year, even if you want to come back, make it harder for them to contact you. Block their numbers, block their emails. Don't respond. Don't get swept into that toxic cycle. So anyway, if this video has been helpful, definitely comment down below. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up. So anyway, I'll talk to you next time.